Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 888A, and today's date is February 8th, 2016, and the title of the episode is Countries Are Dumping U.S. Assets, and Iran Will Not Use the Dollar for Oil Trade. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, on Friday, we saw the market was down. It's down today once again. The high-frequency traders, the plunge protection team, worked as hard as they possibly could to get the market up to, 178 points or so. But what we're seeing is that the job numbers came out on Friday, and I guess good news really doesn't help because, they told the world that the unemployment rate is down to 4.9%, but that really didn't matter at this point. And we have to look at this job report and say, does this really make any sense? I mean, according to the report, in January, 151,000 new jobs, they were created. But where are these jobs? According to the report, 69% of the new jobs are accounted for by retail, waitresses, and bartenders. And if we add health and social services into this, we see all the jobs are accounted for. This is not the employment picture of a first world economy. In January, they're trying to tell us that the retail sector added 57,700 jobs. Really? The holiday season was a complete and utter disaster. We see all these retail outlets telling us they're going to be closing their stores, laying off people, but retail took on 57,700 jobs? How can this possibly be? So where did they really add them? Did they just make this up? Such a large increase in retail employment suggests an expected rise in sales. Did we see that? No. Transportation and warehousing lost 20,300 jobs, and wholesale trade added only 8,000. So where are they getting these numbers? It seems at this point, they're just making it up just to make it sound good. I mean, they're just not leaving people off of the market. They're just adding people to certain areas. The whole thing is manipulated. It's fake. It's phony. It's false. And we can see what's really going on in America and around the world is completely separate and apart from their illusion and is moving away further and further and further away, and it's getting harder to explain. Bank of America is out there and they're saying, you know something? The U.S. may already be in a recession. Maybe. No. The U.S. is in a recession. Actually, it's in a depression. We've been going through this for years right now. And where all of this, all the economic indicators and everything that we've been talking about has led up to this point where things are starting to fall apart. But of course, in everyone else's mind, the corporate media, the government, and all those people that are sleeping, they believe that, things just started to go bad. No, they have been going bad. They only can keep the illusion going for so long until everything starts to separate. We see JP Morgan, the Quant, who looked at the market, Kolanovic. He has confirmed the tech bubble has now completely popped. And we're going to see other bubbles start to pop because that's what this economy is made up of. Bubbles. Actually, it's a central bank U.S. government economy. The actual people of the United States are sitting on the sidelines. They don't have jobs. They don't have savings. They've lost their homes. Most of the people are working part-time, and more people are losing their jobs. They're not purchasing the homes. Those are from hedge funds and investment companies. Foreign investors are coming in and purchasing the homes in cash. And the entire system right now is starting to crumble and fall apart. And as this falls apart, we're going to see things accelerate. We're going to see industries, sectors really start to fall apart, and they won't be able to explain it. They'll try the weather, They'll try everything else but what's really happening here. If you notice, they always skirt around what's really happening, that the economy is falling apart. Ooh, we have bad holiday sales. It must be the warm weather. It must be the cold weather. It must be because the sun, was up in the sky directly overhead and it was blinding the people and they couldn't go shopping. I mean, any excuse they could possibly use, this is what they're doing at this point. And it's getting ridiculous because no one believes it anymore. And as we see, Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, they're telling us there are more layoffs. It's increasing. It's getting worse as we move forward. And the U.S. has lost manufacturing. The Baltic Dry Index, it has fallen again. I mean, we are down right now to about 295 points. I mean, we've never seen anything like this before. Global trade has come to a screeching halt. It's at a standstill at this point. The U.S. is not manufacturing. The U.S. is not purchasing. The U.S., because of the GMO foods, we're not exporting like we used to. Countries are saying, you know something, we'd rather not have that type of food in our country, so we're going to ban it. And what's happening now is other countries, like Russia, they are going to become the largest wheat exporter in 2016. Wheat exports from Russia are expected to set a new record this year, outpacing the biggest wheat exporters of Canada and the U.S. I mean, think about this. What's happening right now? The U.S. is being stripped of everything right now. U.S. wheat exports are projected to fall to a 44-year low, to 21.8 million tons. Russia, their exports are going to rise 3% to 23.5 million. Canada, their exports are expected to be 20.5 million tons, down from 24.1 million tons. I mean, what we're seeing right now is horrific. It's terrible. Venezuela right now, their entire economy is collapsing. We see hyperinflation at this point. It's estimated about 720%. Venezuela is now literally flying in paper money using 36 cargo Boeing 747s to handle the situation. And as it collapses, it looks like Venezuela is going to liquidate the nation's $12 billion in gold reserves to try to save the economy. And this is going to spread to other countries. We're going to see hyperinflation all over the place. When this economy starts to heat up and things start to move along and accelerate like we're seeing, eventually the Fed is going to say, okay, we're going to have to print money once again. And what's going to happen right now is the rest of the world is going to say, okay, you did QE 1, 2, 3, now you're on 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever it is. And it didn't help before. It brought you to this point, and the economy never improved. We're noticing that the numbers are all manipulated now. We're losing all respect for the Fed. We're losing respect for the dollar. We're not going to deal in it anymore. And this is when things really start to fall apart. And this is what we're going to see. The Eurozone right now, it is falling apart just like the US, just like Canada, just like Australia. And we see already the central bankers, they want more power over the European nations. And France and Germany right now, they're out there saying the Eurozone needs structural reform and closer financial integration. They want to create a joint finance ministry. And this is coming from the heads of German and French central banks. The European Central Bank, the ECB, is not in a position to create sustainable long-term growth for the 19 nations. They're saying they need a common finance ministry with an independent fiscal council. Basically, they're going to make all the decisions for all the countries and take away their sovereignty. And they will decide what is going to happen inside on the micro level of the countries. So what we're seeing right now is everyone is becoming desperate. The central bankers are trying to take more control. They're trying to spread the debt even further. And we can see at this point it's getting worse. Now, the U.S. system is based on the petrodollar. And the U.S. dollar is the reserve currency. And we see countries like, Yemen, Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, they were all dealing with the petrodollar. Whoever wanted to purchase the oil, they had to use the petrodollar. And we see in these countries, a lot of these countries didn't want to use the petrodollar, and the people started to rise up. And what we're seeing is that there is a huge push to move away from the dollar. Now, they made the P5+1 deal with Iran, and like I said, it has nothing to do with nuclear. It had nothing to do with nuclear weapons. They used this as the front, but behind the scenes, it was about the central bank of Iran. It was about using their natural resources, placing that on the dollar. And we're getting information from Iran already saying, we're not even going to use the dollar at this point. I mean, they're going to ramp up crude production by some 500,000 barrels per day, and by about 1 million barrels per day by the end of the year, as the international sanctions have been lifted. And what they're trying to do right now is tell the world, we at this point are not going to use the dollar. You do not have to use the dollar to pay for oil. We rather use euros. And eventually what they'll do is they'll move away from euros very slowly, move into rubles or yuan. But this is the first step. So they're bypassing the dollar completely. And the United States government, central bankers, this was their whole plan. Their plan was to have Iran, and they wanted them to use the dollar to keep this system propped up. And already they're telling the United States, we're not doing this. They're saying that switching oil sales to euros makes sense as Europe is now one of Iran's biggest trading partners. And we will have to watch and see how the U.S. government central bankers react to this decision. Now, we are seeing a record number of U.S. citizens renounce their citizenship in 2015, and the number is continually growing. The latest U.S. Treasury report says there is a record 4,279 individuals that decided to give up their citizenship in 2015, and that is up by 864 from the previous full year, which was around 3,415. And when they asked them the question, what was the main reason for this? And it was the Foreign Accounts Tax Compliance Act, which was FATCA, which came into force in 2010. And they're saying that, we cannot handle paying all of these taxes. So we had to renounce our citizenship. We see Obama, very interestingly, is asking Congress for $1.8 billion for the Zika virus. And he's saying that it's needed for funding for research, testing, and public health. The money will include funds for expanding mosquito control as well as speeding up research and testing. Yes, you heard it, for vaccines and new diagnostics. And we can see at this point that he's going to use the money for other reasons, and most likely we'll probably see U.S. troops go into those countries that have these outbreaks, because we always see the U.S. move into these countries that they need to get into. Just like when Ebola first happened, we saw troops go into Liberia and many of the other countries in Africa, and the troops never left. We're going to see the same thing happen in South America. As we know, the U.S. has been trying to overthrow governments in South America because they want the oil. And we're going to see the same thing occur once again, because as we know, the entire economy is collapsing And the U.S. government central bankers, they are becoming desperate, and they need to prop up this system. And they'll do whatever they possibly have to do that. I mean, if it's overthrowing a government, they will do that. If it's creating a new virus, they will do that. They will push the agenda to keep the system alive a little bit longer because they don't want it coming down by itself. They want to control it when the whole thing does crash. And everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.